Well, I was supposed to be in the Hawaiian Islands for 4 days, but unfortunately this chest cough and cold caught up with me and I had to call in sick. So instead we're doing decals today. So today's project is the wheel well bay and extra details here. Fightertown decals F-14 data sheet. Here's a good look at it there. And all kinds of fun stuff to go with it. So all these details came off of the Fightertown decals data sheet. A few of these things, like on here, this little white text, there's larger white boxes, and they just trimmed into little pieces and added. So there you go, folks. That's today's project. A little bit of Model Master Chrome, and it just works so beautifully. So I'm doing kind of all the little metal parts. Covers beautifully, looks wonderful. Did this part right here already. I think it's the nicest chrome that you can brush paint. Here's just a little closer, better look at the landing light. The secret is there's a new one coming eventually that has some different stuff, some very different stuff actually. But in the meantime, I'm trying to get our landing gear here. So looking at this, we're just adding all kinds of small things. Here we have a silver stripe. We're going to put that right on here this time. So we've got our fuselage halves here. And I just used a red Sharpie. And I went ahead and did the inside of the landing gear for the front. Get the paint flowing. And the reason I'm doing this is I'm next going to do the priming. And the idea is I'm not going to paint to the side. This way it should preserve the red. Not too worried about bleed over here, because this is going to, yep, so we got bleed on this side, but we're going to paint at it coming this way, so it should preserve that. This side actually got really nice. Now, the nice thing with the Sharpies, we can also take a little bit of IPA and wipe that off. Let's just see what happens. Oh, maybe not. Might have been the wrong thing. Try something else. Well, finally got back to priming and getting the whole airplane done now. A little bit light on the bottom, but that's okay. Just need this little bit of primer there, but the rest of the airframe is done. And I thought I'd take a moment to address a very real problem in the hobby industry that's plagued us not just recently, but for many, many years prior, and that is your workbench. Now, one of the great joys, I think, in building a model, especially in finishing a model, is clearing off the workbench. And after each project, you start with a fresh, clean, new workbench. However, during the middle of a project, things can get a little out of control. And here is the view today. We start over here. Nobody needs those instructions. Built 10 of these things, got it down. Only make them air, every single time, but that's okay. Parts, things, supplies, all kinds of fun stuff. And working our way to the other side, and there's a airbrush station there. But so yeah, this is a little cramped. You start with this huge area, and then as the project condenses, you get down to this little tiny spot that you're doing all your work in. So I'm gonna take a break. Now that all this stuff is primed, you can see with all the clutter in the background, all kinds of primed parts everywhere now. Landing gear bays are just about done. More prime parts over here, prime parts over there. I'm gonna take a break. We're gonna clean the workbench, come back, see what happens. This is how it looks now. Not totally clean, but pretty darn good. All right, we're gonna do a little work here with insignia white. And I've got the SMS insignia white loaded up in the airbrush. We're using the 0.2. And one of the things I want to do here first off the bat actually is, because I have this insignia red set up on the inside of the fuselages, I'm just going to kind of start and work this. The idea being to paint away from the red. And then we're going to focus a little bit on the center of the panels and let the edge of the panels stay a little darker. So that is where we are going to start. I like it. Now this area also gets a fair amount of weathering along here, basically on the side landing gear bays. You're going to have a lot of touching. You're going to have fluid stuff coming out of there. So we'll leave that a little bit messy. But for now, that's good for this side. And this is going to be a little bit more coverage. So we're going to spread this out a bit more. Open the nozzle. And just kind of work the entire wing. Just kind of use this random, but your brain and your hand don't do random well, so it kind of ends up being a bit of a pattern. And look at that, we're out. All right, load up the airbrush, we'll be right back. All right, we have the airbrush loaded back up. We're gonna go round 2. As I was saying, even though you try and do random, your hand just kind of ends up doing a similar pattern, so that's fine. We'll just kind of do these little squigglies and fill in kind of each area at a time. And again, I'm not looking for final coverage on this, although I think I could get that with the SMS paint pretty easily. Just go a little heavier and back and forth. So right now I'm just kind of filling it in. We'll take the splotchiness, that's just fine. All right, there you go. That is the bottom of one wing. First round done, we're gonna set that aside. I'm just filling in the spoilers here, same pattern, same way of doing this. So I'm liking the way this looks. Filling in, building up a little bit more opacity, I guess is the best word, to the white. I'm going a little bit heavier now, just kind of filling in the areas. There we go. That is the one wing, top and bottom, done for what I need. All right, continuing on to painting. We've started the back end here, and I'm just kind of working my way up the tunnel, basically, just as we go. And one of the things I am doing is I'm shooting it straight on to the model. The things with the F-14, if you start shooting this like here at that angle, you get a lot of dusting. You can get the paint drying early. And just when you think it looks done, you take it away, you realize, oh no, it needs a lot more white, but that's what coats 2 and 3 are for. What I'm trying to do though is avoid where I know we're gonna have gold gray. I don't want to have too much white to affect that color. So I'm just working on the undersides that are pure white right now. I'm just basically going panel by panel, filling it in a little bit, then coming back a little bit heavier afterwards, because it looks good, and then all of a sudden you come back to it, and it's pretty splotchy. There's a lot of the primer still showing through, so we just come back and we just keep building up the color, and then eventually it'll get to where exactly I want it to be. That is looking really good. I like the way it looks. Moving on from painting, we're going to finishing to start with. I'm going to start with using this Mr. Hobby. I'm actually using 8000 polishing cloth. I'm just taking the wing here because it is kind of rough. For being gloss paint, however I'm painting it, getting kind of rough. So I just take the 8000 grit and I'm just basically polishing it. I like it. It's actually smooth enough that I could probably just put decals right on this with no gloss. Welcome to new day, new challenges. Today's thing I have laid out here in front of me, some drill bits and some magnets. And what we're going to try and do is take these Phoenix rails, because I love the look of the F-14 with absolutely nothing on it, especially for these early jets. They have no drop tanks, they have no weapon rails under the belly, so it's a really cool, clean look. But I am going to have the Sidewinder, actually a rail out here. I also have some both Res Kit and Edward Phoenix missiles, some A Phoenix missiles. I thought it'd be fun to put those on there. And I'm going to use the underbelly Phoenix rails to do that. So what I want to be able to do is have it both clean and with rails. So when I put a magnet on there, I can go ahead and snap that on. I'm going to use these 2x1 magnets, and the fun part is that they are magnets, and getting them to separate is a whole challenge on its own. And take one of these and simply insert it in the hole here. So it'll go just like that. It'll paint solid, and then when the rail comes over the top, it'll just snap right on and stay in place. So that's the idea. The harder part is going to be on the front end, which is this piece here to the Phoenix rail. Now when we add that here, okay, we have our little mounting tab for it, but when we add this on here, there is no space. I was thinking about putting it back here, but there's not enough space to put it in the trowel here. So up front, so we're gonna have to get a little creative for how that is going to mount. I had to take this part and drill out the mounting tab, and so now it looks like this with that in there. And this way, when I turn it over and attach it, it doesn't quite click, but it holds in, and it holds plenty. I can turn it upside down. In fact, this will actually, on its own, without even the front, hold it in. Here's the update for the front end. Now, what I've decided to do, because we do have this tiny little mounting hole that goes in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill this out with my 2mm. I'm going to put a 2mm in here, and then where this mounting tab is, I am going to take, these are 1x1 magnets, and I'm going to simply glue one. It turns out it's the same height and width, everything. Basically, this mounting tab is 1x1. Now, the 1x1 would fit in here perfectly, but I want to get some more power behind it, so I'm going to drill that out, go 2 here, 1 here, should work out just fine. While we're doing this here, the trick with this one, though, is not to go, there we go, there's one. Yeah, we'll clean that out just a little bit more. There we go. And we would just drop one in here, just like that. And it doesn't interfere with our trowel. We'll have to clean this hole up and get that in there just a little bit better, but I think this will work great. For the front, is what I found is that these 1mm fit perfectly. What I've done is taken my 1mm drill bit, centered it, and we're just drilling in. I was thinking we might be able to get 2 in there, but without wanting to damage this outside part, we're just going to drill 1mm deep. That should do it. The easiest way I can think of to do this right now . Good evening. I am home alone in the modeling bench and trying to get some stuff done. Here we have the, you can see it, the 1mm by 1mm that's going to attach on here. And one of the reasons this is going to stick so well is I went ahead and added some magnets to the inside, just a styrene piece here, just to kind of hold the magnets in place while I glue them, because it's something to glue. So they're there, but I used 4x1mm, 2 of them here, 2 of them here. That way, when this goes together, boom, it stays. I'm thinking the weight is going to have a resin AIM-54 on this, so when it's holding here, it needs to be pretty solid. So we got that. What I did do on this is I went 1mm in and drilled in the holes. Into here, but you got to be careful, because if you go a slightly, like a gnat's hair beyond 1mm on it, boom, this is what happens. You drill through and you break it, and then you get things like this and trying to get the magnets out. So now watch this. If I just put the piece here, right, and I take my magnet piece, it holds real nice, and just like that, it is held in place easily enough to slide in our fuselage. We can actually almost put this in on its own separately. Still have to glue it in, but that's kind of cool. That would slide in all by itself. So there we go, magnet story. It's ready, it's done. And we're going to move on to, before we can get to painting, we got to do a little bit more prep work here. And in order to do this, I'm going to use a little bit more sprue goo, or Mr. Dissolved Putty, I guess we should call it. And what I'm going to do is I am just going to try and work it into, there's a very, very slight seam on the nose. There we go. There is the top. Let's flip it over. It's actually a little bit more of a seam really on the bottom than the top. I got the top lined up really well and then did just some light, literally just sanded the seam. We're just literally working this in the length of the seam. I'm not really worried about it, whether it fills it or there's too much on here, because it will go down quite a bit. See if we got anything else while we have the sprue goo out, and guess what we do? Boom, these things I'm gonna have to deal with. So in order to do this, just like everything else, easy way. Now this is the 11th Tomcat, Tamiya Tomcat that I've built, and this is the first time I've had an issue with a few things. First one being these wings, the seam, just even though I glued it down a few times, it just keeps cracking open. So hopefully this will finish resolving that. The other thing is, well, we'll show that when we get to it, but getting the cockpit fuselage into the body has actually been a little tricky on this one. And bringing these together, bringing this top part, that, and if I put the canopy sill, the cockpit sill in here, there's just a little bit of play you can see there. There's always a good seam with this piece, so there's just a lot of play in this part. Once I think we get the bottom in here, once that's glued in, what I'm going to do is not attach the this canopy sill now. I'm going to wait till after we put the cockpit windscreen and all that together, so that way I can use this play to make that part fit, and then we'll drop the canopy sill in. So for now, that's going back into the box. Tiny little things here, a little bit of sheet styrene, plugged the hole right here. We cleaned up these lines on the bottom of the wing, just couldn't live with that seam there. So Mr. Dissolved Putty to the rescue. Actually, sort of like Mr. Surfacer, it there's a big blob on top. It fills in, sands down. It looks like there might be even some ghost seams along in there, but we're gonna hit that with some primer and see what happens. In the meantime, wait for this sucker to dry, trim that out. And you can see we fixed up the nose and got that all squared away, so we're ready to prime and paint again. All right, there we go. That is done. All right, we've given one good coat here for the front, and the white's really blended in well. What I've decided to do with this, going to the back now, is I'm just going to kind of do a heavy coat of white, and I'm going to let all the weathering for this be done after the fact. Trying to be really careful around the landing gear bay, since we did so much work in there. Now while I'm doing this, I want to kind of go back and reference, that's my profile right there, kind of to see how high up I need to go. And we definitely need to go to at least the first panel line back here. So I'm kind of being lazy and I don't want to come back and do it again. So this is going to need a little bit more here. And now we're going to work on the top. And the nose cone is going to be white, so I'm going to have to make that white and blend it in. Now, I have not done anything about masking the cockpit, so I need to be very careful in how I shoot this. What I'm noticing right away is, as smooth as I thought my sanding was, right here and right here, it's not even. So we're going to have to take that back, sand it down, and do it again. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and just blend in everything else I can on the nose. Good morning after a late night and lots of painting. I'm going to move on to the wings here. And we're gonna mask the top. We're gonna get ready for some gold gray. I had this in the stash. It's been here for a while. Cross Delta masks, vinyl. We got 2 sheets, one for wheels, which we won't need. The ones we really need are the flaps. So we'll see. I actually like using, for the canopies, I really like using the tape masks. The vinyl just, I don't know, I just haven't had the best luck. So we're gonna go ahead and start with flaps. The nice thing is I'm not really worried about the trailing edge part. And maybe what we'll do then is start with these parts. I'm actually having to stretch it a little bit as I place it. Well, I think that's good. We're going to still have to do a little bit of work back here, but that's just fine. Let's move on to the next one. We're going to zoom in and get a better look at it as we do this one. I haven't put any gloss or clear coat at all on the wing. I'm literally just masking straight off of the paint and hoping that the vinyl will work well. We got this one too. It's having to kind of give some pretty good tension and stretch and pull it pretty good to get it to fit on here. All right, well, I think we're good with that. It's not quite as perfect as I would like. You can see along here there's just a slight touch that's going to have to be masked with tape, but then over here it's hanging off the other side. So I think we just got a little bit of shrinkage. This is why I don't like vinyl whenever there's a paper option, which boom, I'm back. Magically pulled this out of the stash, and this is new wear masks with that Tamiya style tape. And this has exactly what I need as well for the flaps and other things. Nice thing is the way this is laid out. I guess I could do it with the vinyl too, but there's so little space between the tires and the wings. Same thing here, but I could use the other side and reverse mask that. So if I need to go back and paint the white after, if any of that pulls up, I can use the reverse side and some more masking tape and make that work. So we're kind of working our way through how we're going to mask this to shoot the gray and preserve the white. And you think that the gold gray white is actually pretty easy. However, it's a little more complicated than we would think. I'm just kind of working this in. Actually, that looks like it went down pretty perfect. That will do it. That gives us a good spot with which to work from this. We'll cover the rest up there. And well, you get the idea. Here we'll take a look at the wings. Added a little bit of tape just to fix a few of the spots. And same thing, the other one had this edge. It just didn't quite work it all the way out. So it looks good enough now. We'll paint it. We'll see what happens. Chances are, like most things, 1 step forward, 2 steps back, and we'll redo it again. But in the meantime, let's have some fun masking and be right back. And just when you think you're ready to go, you find other things. But this mold seam that runs the length of the intakes, it's not so bad on that side, but if we flip this over here to this side, it's just, you can see it with the naked eye. It's just too much. So that's going to have to get sanded down. That's just something I can't live with. So we're going to have to fix that. And then after that, we'll be able to start our gold gray. A bit of masking. This is the best picture I have. I actually have 2 pictures of the left side of 32. So we will use that handful of blue tack and just rolled it out. And what you end up with is that after you roll it for a little while. Okay, here we go. We're starting with right on top here, and we're going to come down and then back up over this bump. So we come back up like that. probably does a little more like this and then back up. Now, what I'm finding as we do that, in the front areas here, I did not get enough white. As much as I like this demarcation line, I'm going to pull that out and we're going to paint some more white. Couldn't resist, had to fix these things. So fixed hopefully the nose, got that cleaned up. There was lots of little things when this is the problem with using things like this, right? As you can see all the little tiny details and all the little things that are wrong. So I went ahead, fixed up the nose. Over here we had just some little things to fix in here, and while I was at it, I didn't like the way that the magnets, there's some super glue kind of there, so I trimmed away that, so that's going to be a little bit of a fix there. And then on our main thing over here, I saw just a couple bubbles in this seam, and I need that to be perfect, so I went ahead and fixed that up. And then the big thing is I went ahead and sanded down these mold seams. I thought I had them really good before I painted, but the more I put the white on, the more I could see them. So I went ahead and sanded that down. We started with 800 grit, then went to 1000 and 1500 to just kind of polish it out a little bit. You can see that there. Well, I thought it might be kind of fun just to show the filling in here of this area. So we don't have too much paint left, but I'm just going to kind of paint inside the lines. If I was really good, I would probably strip everything down and start from primer. But I think we've established I'm not that good, and I'm kind of lazy, so we're just going to fill this in and go from there. That, folks, looks great. Okay, I think for the 4th or 5th time in this build so far, I can say once again, we're ready to move on. This is how things look. I love it. It's great. It's glossy. It's smooth. The white is just where I want it to be. The forward fuselage is exactly what I need it to be. So now I can finally move on, and we're going to go to the gold gray. Now, doing things a little bit differently. Normally, I don't know if I'm like everybody else or a lot of people out there, when you go to paint something, right? So we're going to paint the top of our Tomcat, put everything together, you know, put the forward fuselage into the body, get everything ready, and basically have everything that I want to paint in gold gray ready to go. However, I'm going to do it a little differently because I'm using the solid color. I'm going to go ahead and work on the top and the wings with some gold gray, and then a little bit later after the paint dries, we'll come back and mask things like the fuselage and the back end here and paint that gray. So I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to go like full coverage and just kind of heavier and get it ready to go, or if I'm going to fill in with the brown.
Again, this is 12 psi. I put in just a few drops of Mr. Leveling Thinner. Even though I really like the paint on its own, what I have found is the leveling thinner, if I get anything pulled up, it helps the gloss and it helps it level out, exactly what its name says. So far I'm liking it. When I get in really close here, and I do some small stuff, I'm getting some stippling with it, but that's just my painting. When I come out and go a little heavier, I get that thicker coat, which gives me the gloss. I'm just kind of varying things as I go.
Those keeping track at home, what is it now? It's 2:45. I started this 12:30, so a little over 2 hours ago. Pick up the little one from daycare maybe after bedtime tonight, come back and do a little bit more. So I'm liking this. Just my personal taste right now is that this gold gray looks really light.
Looks like he's doing some stuff off screen, so come back up here.
Because this paint does seem so thin, at least the way I'm putting it on, how it will cover over the white. So I do have, like over here, these white areas are going to be, some are going to be covered and some are not. So let's see how it goes. All right, you get the idea. I'm going to keep doing this for the next however long it takes. All right, that, folks, is 1 cup of paint. Let's refill, keep going. I got the top done and went ahead and gave it basically some 2000 or so, just these polishing cloths. Went over the whole thing. It was just was a little more dusty than I would have liked and not glossy enough. So I did that. And in doing that, you got to be really light, because what happens is you hit the high points and damage the paint. So we'll go back over that. There's going to be several layers on here anyways, but I went ahead and based off the picture mask, that is what we're going for. By the way, this is 100% SMS. I didn't do any thinning on it at all. What I'm doing is I'm painting kind of down into the mask just a little bit. Should still give me a good soft enough demarcation line. And I'm going to give the wings a little bit more. So I'm seeing is that the areas down by the mask are still too light because the white was shot there. So we're just going to keep filling that up. And I'm doing this in the direction of the airflow. And there's our paint. Okay, cup of paint's gone. I think we're good. All right, there's only time for a quick reveal here, but we're going to take a look at what our painting results were. That just comes right off. That's what I love about Blue Tack. There's no stickiness actually that's attached to the model. And that, folks, is the demarcation line that matches up to the real thing. And that looks pretty good, actually. I think at first this light gold gray seems really light. But on the side, wow. On the side, it looks like light gold gray. On the top, it looks really light. Huh. Between this color here and this color here, those are different colors. So I am wondering if I did apply this full strength and this with leveling thinner. I'm wondering if the leveling thinner altered the color enough. Wow, that's really crazy how different that is. Huh, we're going to have to investigate that. And I think it's going to have to go, the top is going to have to get painted solid with no leveling thinner, which this is nice and super smooth. We got a little ding here we got to correct. All right, time to call it a night. I was up till 2:30 last night working on this. It's time to go to bed early tonight. So have a great night, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow.